Dear MEPs, Ms. Ursula, it is high time that someone told you directly what the vast majority of Europeans think of you. Electing you as President of the European Commission in the previous term was a huge mistake.
Votes in favour, 401. I would like to congratulate Ursula von der Leyen on her re-election.
You are the face of the European Green Deal, which is destroying the European economy and agriculture, which is leading to Europe being turned into an economic open-air museum.
European Union's farmers demand the withdrawal of the Green Deal.
You are the face of all the EU's climate craziness, which leads to us Europeans becoming poorer and poorer. You are the face of the Migration Pact, and I address you as woman to woman, as mother to mother. How are you not ashamed to promote something like the Migration Pact, which leads to millions of European women and children feeling threatened on the streets of their own cities? You are responsible for every rape, for every assault, for every tragedy caused by the influx of illegal immigrants, because you are the one who invites these people here to Europe. And for what you are doing, you should go to jail, not to the European Commission. You know what we think of your European Green Deal? We want a Europe of free and sovereign nations, not a sick leftist ideology. And from Poland, hands over, and all the soldiers who are defending in the underside of the European border at the moment, you should bow at the waist.
Ms. von der Leyen, you are the President of the Commission, not the President of corruption. Green Deal, Fit for 55, all these programs, they are destroying the lives of citizens in the EU. Mrs. von der Leyen, you are a disgrace to any democracy. Your 5 years have been more than enough. Deindustrialization, price explosion, abolition of freedom, democracy, censorship and harassment of citizens. That is your policy, Ms. von der Leyen. Shame on you. Shame on you. With your Pfizer duds, friend, you negotiated a contract worth billions for a product that at best was useless, at worst harmful, and in many cases even fatal. Once again, you should be ashamed of yourself. Just the day before yesterday, the ECJ ruled that you should not have kept the contents of the vaccine contract secret. You are the subject of several corruption investigations. If you had a shred of decency in your body, you wouldn't be running for office in the first place. But you have no decency. Ms. von der Leyen, you are President of the Commission, not of the corruption. You should not be re-elected. You should be chased out of this parliament and out of office in disgrace. That's where you belong.
Mrs. von der Leyen, the voters of Europe sent a clear signal on June 9th. They voted for a center-right majority in this House. But Mrs. von der Leyen, you and your center-right EPP group have chosen to negotiate to the left. We saw the result in your speech today. Nuclear power was not mentioned in the speech with a single word, after 5 years of unilateral focus on weather-dependent power. The need to deport illegal migrants was not mentioned today, even though we know that the left stopped the return directive from being adopted as part of the Migration Pact during the last legislature. Subsidiarity principles are not respected. You want to deal with housing policy, health policy. You are proposing treaty changes that you know the left here will use for power transfers. It is a green left-wing agenda that we heard today with political micromanagement, and we can only vote against you today.
Thank you, Madam President, Mrs. von der Leyen. Von der Leyen, your speech illustrates the contempt you have for people in dire straits. I listened to you for over half an hour, and not once did you mention the word poverty, the word unemployment. But you did talk about competitiveness, prosperity, and pampering companies. Mrs. von der Leyen, I know you earn more than 30,000 euros a month, but do you know that 1 in 3 Europeans must wish for meals? That millions of Europeans are once again going to go without a vacation because they're already in the red on the 10th of the month? Mrs. von der Leyen, come out of your ivory tower and face reality at last. because there's not really much to be satisfied with from your past mandate, and even less reason to grant you a new one. Have you taxed the fattening multinationals and billionaires? The multinationals that are raising the price of our shopping basket as we ask? No, you cajoled them. Have you acted in the face of the climate emergency? No. We were treated to unambitious measures and the greenwashing of market ecology. Have you protected our farmers and industry from international competition? No. You've increased the number of free trade agreements. Have you saved our public services? No. You've reinforced the austerity rules that are destroying them. Have you promoted transparency in the face of the all-powerful lobbies? No. Here too, rather than putting ethics before money, you've just been condemned by the European Court of Justice for the opacity of contracts for COVID vaccines. Today, Mrs. von der Leyen, you shouldn't even be appearing before us, but rather before a judge. And should we start again for another 5 years? Mrs. von der Leyen, we now know that your re-election will be based solely on opaque arrangements between friends. But Europe's citizens are fed up with these old methods and want clarity. Our group will reject all these schemes and defend a clear alternative. For wealth sharing, climate action, fundamental rights, women's rights and peace. As we have done over the past 5 years, we will of course vote in favor of any texts that move in this direction. We welcome the appointment of a housing commissioner, but we will not be satisfied with words. We want deeds. And as you've already understood, we refuse to take part in the masquerade of your beloved Marxist Grand Coalition.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam President of the Commission, we can spell reality, but what state the Union is in, everyone can see. Europe is sinking into crisis, trust in other institutions is declining. Citizens are living worse and worse, the cost of living is rising. And worse, it will continue to rise because the left liberal establishment prefers to remain in the soteriological delusion that it will save the planet by forcing climate policy on itself. But in reality, its effect will be economic suicide. Companies are fleeing our continent, desperate farmers are taking to the streets. The EU economy is losing its competitive edge. We cease to count as a world player. Dear Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, you have been a very weak chairwoman, not to say the worst. As EKR, we supported your candidacy 5 years ago, but we were not enthusiastic about it. We made this decision by choosing the lesser of two evils, because at the time you were competing with the fanatical Franz Timmermans. I remember the meetings with you at that time, during which you are supposed to please us as you do today with various promises. But today we are no longer fooled. Your management style was disastrous, making decisions in a narrow circle of German advisors, arrogance, hypocrisy, lack of cooperation with the commissioners, exuberant ambition and passionate efforts around your own image. This is the style of your work. Truthfulness was not one of them either. For a long time you deceived the Polish people about funds from the National Reconstruction Plan, Pacta sunt servanta. You, in the presence of the Polish Prime Minister, the Polish President, promised to unblock the funds, and then you backed out of it. Transparency was not your strong point either. We remember the miraculous disappearance of text messages exchanged with the head of Pfizer. A separate topic is how you treated my homeland, Poland. The position of head of the Commission requires elementary decency, whose name is impartiality. Meanwhile, you were bitterly unbiased, supported the then opposition without embarrassment, worked to change the government in Poland, blocking, for example, KPO funds, or triggering Article 7. This was scandalous, unacceptable interference in the affairs of another country. And what the Commission has been doing lately in the face of brutal violations of the law by the Tusk government shows that the issue of the lack of so-called rule of law under Law and Justice was one big reaching the heights of hypocrisy leanings. After all, it was the current government that took over the public media by force. It is now the forcible actions being taken in the courts and prosecutors' offices. Investigations on the order of power are underway and preparations are being made for political trials. Torture is being used against those arrested. Torture is being used to force false confessions. By the way, where are all those feminists today who shouted so loudly about women's rights? Ladies and gentlemen, despite this, today you are closing the Article 7 procedure. No act of truth in Poland has been changed. Only the Prime Minister to your colleague has been changed. That is Donald Tusk.
If you liked the video, Please like and subscribe to spread more awareness. Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. Your engagement helps us bring more content to life. Remember, stay informed, stay engaged,